The shifter just broke, and you can see it's yeah, you can see right there there's like a cast that there's a cast piece that broke. Kind of hard to see, but that's supposed to be attached like that, and it's snapped. So I was at work going to lunch when this happened, and I finally just backed up to the nearest parking spot, and then just like picking a lock, just got the vehicle back into park, and then called a tow truck. Um, uh, at home, I started taking parts off, and I noticed the three bolts holding the mechanism on. Two of them were good. They just backed right out, but one of them was bad. It was broken into this threads. So that's the broken bolt remover kit I wanted to use, but the bolt was too hard to. The bolt is too hard to make a pilot hole, so I can't even use it. So I'm gonna weld the washer onto the bolt, and then this nut there, and then weld that nut to the washer, and then I'll be able to turn it. And then just wet it down with a wet rag as I go so I don't overheat. Oh, and then clamp the ground to this metal clamp that I'm also using, doubling as a washer holder. The clamp grounded, the washer's clamped, weld it on, and then weld the nut on using the vice grips second. But first I'm gonna disconnect the battery. Alright, I can barely see, but there it is. Washer's clamped. I can barely see, but I can see it. Okay. Wet rag. Wet rag. Okay, possibly a little fire damage, but yeah, that'll be fine. Take that off. They're just burning the tape. All right, that nut, the washer's welded on there. I didn't have my water rag. There's some water on the gutter right outside. I'll use that. Shoot, because it's heating up that casting that's below the washer. I didn't hear a sizzle, so I probably didn't get that hot. Would have heard a sizzle. Unfortunately, the globby is not centered, but I'm just gonna put the bolt center the nut with the peak of the glob. All right, so the globby, it's off center. I thought I could get away with it, but the way to clamp it, I mean, the difficulty it presents in clamping is just not worth it. So I'm gonna die grind it. All right, so now the globby has been got a mound ground into it, so it's mostly centered. So when I put that nut on, it'll stay in place when I clamp it. All right, so next step is to weld the nut on, and here's the nut. Got it on vice grips. The vice grips have the welder's negative clamp on there. Just gonna toss them up there. So plan B. Alright, plan B is just to use a center punch to hold it, and then I'll clamp to the center punch. Okay, sure enough, that center punch, grounding to the center punch, using the center punch to hold the nut on place, combined with the die grinded nubby of the washer below, let me tack weld that nut on there. Now, it's kind of like it's purchasing on the base material, definitely, but I can die grind that off before I start turning the nut, and it'll probably break free whatever's left on the base material. Alright, this time I'm using lots and lots of water to cool down the weld, because when that nut goes on there, it's going to create a lot of heat. Alright, I'm going to close the door. Close the door to get some sort of windshield. All the windows are closed just to prevent wind factor, so I can get a nice clean weld in the middle of that nut. I got my tack weld on. He's still globbied onto the base material. Oh well, we'll get that later. Put on the spattered glasses, the welding hood. I'm nice and calm, and I am totally ready to cool it down immediately this time. I've got lots of wet rag right there. My only two thoughts are weld it quickly, cool it down. Here we go. Weld it quickly, cool it down. Oh, maybe grounding it would be helpful. Yeah, I hear that when you're welding, if you ground your base material, it's super helpful. It makes the electricity work. Okay, I didn't plan that out at all. Apparently, there's no way to fit the ground in there, so I have to come up with a solution for that. Okay, a few seconds later, there's the solution. You got vice grips to the outside. Well, I'm not going to weld, I'm just welding on the inside, and that'll do it. Weld it quickly, cool it down. Weld it quickly, cool it down. Without burning myself. Ooh, that got warm on my finger. I hear a sizzle. I'm hearing a sizzle. Definitely hearing a sizzle. The sizzle's gone. So now it's going back towards room temperature. Hallelujah, I got my middle finger got burnt. I just gotta remove that lobby that's going to the base material from the nut. Alright, that should have done it. You know, I grinded the heck out of it. You can hear the air compressor just huffing and puffing back there because it worked so hard. So I think that's enough to just break it free. And there's still a little bit connected to the base metal weld wise, but I'm just gonna try to break it free. Break it free. Alright, moment of truth. Got my 14 millimeter on that nut. Oh. And got a little bit of material still welded to the base material, but here we go. Oh, come on. Don't break. Please don't break the weld. Okay, something's turning. I mean, at least that's something. It's behaving somewhat like a bolt that's been freed into its threads. Oh boy. Please. Okay, everything seems so smooth and organized that I think this is going to be a success, and that bolt is coming out of that hole. There it is. Got the broken bolt off by welding a washer and a nut together. Okay, now I just disconnect the rest of the broken mechanism. Again, a screwdriver, and push in there, it'll pop out. There we go. That end comes with the new one. And then down here, oh, these guys. There's one here and one here. I use two screwdrivers in tandem to help prevent breaking one of these plastic bits, because in a video someone broke them by accident. So they're in good shape. They'll go right back on the new mechanism. So to get the top of the clamshell, there's I got a little too rough. There's two bolts, one here and one here. But I got too rough before I found this one, and I watched the video and finally figured out there's a second one, and I broke that. But it still has some thread, so it's still good. The broken bit still has some thread on it, so it'll go back on. But then I had the there's little nubbies sticking out on the keyway, and so I had to grind those off so that it would fit. Oh, I had to grind on the top of the clamshell too, so I can get it off. Oh well, it's just a junker extra vehicle anyway, don't matter. So with the also one thing I wanted to say is that one video was saying you have to disconnect this, you have to poke into this hole. There's a hole here while you're in the start position. Not cranking the engine, but just turn it to the on position. I mean, that wasn't even necessary. You just put the flathead right in that little groove right there, and then it'll pop out. There's that new bit. I'm a little worried there's an adjustability to it. A little worried that it needs to be adjusted, I guess. Alright, got the new mechanism on. The 3 bolts are tightened down pretty good. That guy's back in his seat, and then these guys are both connected. Alright, got the e-brake off. That noise is normal. It's like a wet serpentine belt or something. Okay, it's going into reverse. Goes into park. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't go all the way down to first, which is like the lowest thing. I have to make an adjustment somehow. But I can live without first gear for now. At least I can get it out from in front of Ben's house finally. Yeah, that's a normal whiny sound. Alright. It's fixed. Woo!